Thank you everybody for joining the workshop today. Now we're going into the realm of blockchain and crypto and decentralized science. I'm Max, and I'm going to talk a little bit about decentralized science, and for the people who don't know it, about VitaDAO, what VitaDAO is doing, and how we fund aging research. So maybe let me start by pointing out that science has been the engine of our civilization and driven all the progress. We built a bunch of cool tools, from atomic nuclear reactors to rockets to cities. Science always has been driving civilization. But the engine has become a little bit rusty over the last decades. We have more scientists than ever, but it seems that the research productivity is going down. Science is becoming more expensive, it's getting less bang for its buck, and even the science that's being conducted is being less disruptive, and so something is a little bit odd. And I mean, a lot of you are academics, and you know how this entire pipeline works, that you have actually great ideas, but you have to apply for those grants, you wait for funding, most of the time you don't get funding. Once you get funding, you have even more bureaucracy to deal with, and the part of that you spend actually on science is not that big as you probably would like to. And even when you can do science, and you have to write the papers and publish or perish. So the process is not optimal, and probably there are a lot of things that we can optimize on. And yeah, even academics spend a lot of times on those grants. In 2020 or 2021, when those COVID fast grants came out, they rapidly deployed a lot of money for COVID research. But after that, they actually asked a lot of the scientists, how long do you actually take for grant writing, or what are your funding restraints? And the overall sentiment of them was that, well, most of the people, if they wouldn't have funding restraints, they probably would do different kind of research, and also that they actually spend way too much time on writing grants. So probably something that we can improve on. Then generally the incentives for scientists in academia in general a little bit misaligned, that you have those success metrics of impact factors and citations, that often, depending on the university, the IP that you create doesn't really belong to you, it's not being spun out, and that it's not necessarily the stuff that's cited the most is the most impact for society. And after all, even if you publish, or data is being published, a lot of it is not reproducible. It really depends on the field. In psychology, it seems it's almost half of it. Some other people estimate that it's 70 to 90%. So it's almost the funny thing, if you read scientific research, you probably first should think maybe it's fraud, maybe it's a lie, maybe it's disillusion. So it's also not a really good statement of thinking that we have this big problem, and that we can reproduce on the data sharing part as well, because sometimes when you ask somebody to share the data afterwards, you get incomplete data, you get no data, you get data that's not the original data, it's already been pre-processed, so it's not fully transparent. And then, after all, peer review, they're somewhat gatekeepers. It's big business, it's big money. At the same time, all the people who review, they're not really getting compensated, it's just expected by them. And there's even papers out there that say that even grant peer review is not performing that well, and it's poorly predictive of the productivity. So in general, science have problems, or centralized science. It's becoming a bit stagnant. It's misaligned incentives, funding is risk averse, there's reproducibility crisis, so inexpensive, non-transparent. I think there's also some kind of groupthink. If you're in the group thinking space, you might enter a cult. So so things are a little bit wrong. And how can we overcome those problems and get science back to track, that we really are in an accelerating phase where we get exponential progress? And one solution could be decentralized science. And the idea of decentralized science is that Web3 and the blockchain mechanisms are used to almost enforce better behavior on all the problems that we have, that we can align incentive systems, that we can have faster funding mechanisms, that through the transparency of the blockchain we can ensure better replication, that a lot of stuff is open source and more owned by the scientists, and thereby accelerate scientific discovery. This decentralized science movement has been started 2-3 years ago. With VitaDAO, we were the first science DAO that started funding projects, but since then it has blown up. You have now 150 different organizations that try to tackle different problems of the scientific field using blockchain mechanisms. To be fair, a lot of that I always think is like in this, the next version of like the open science movement that now found blockchain as an additional tool, and people work on creating better publishing platforms and incentives on that, or like funding underfunded science, or like just like bringing other communities together, like the arts community into the science community and the other way around, and just like trying to rethink the problems that we currently have and offer alternative solutions. And ultra rare bios, like I think yearly conglomerating this decentralized science landscape. I hope they come up with a new one that's almost a year old, so you probably have like more companies or like more DAOs, more organizations that work in that landscape out there. So it's growing. And it's also growing that we have like more and more events. It's like now, 3 years ago, there was like no event about decentralized science. Now you have like 2 events a month in the world. Some are bigger, some are smaller. A lot of them are connected to crypto events. We have like in 2 weeks, DeSci Berlin, which is like a 2-day event where we bring academics and blockchain people together at a university there. Then 2 days later, we have DeSci Singapore, where we also bring academics and the blockchain community together. So this movement is growing. And the good thing is, everybody can kind of join, because it's like there's like no hierarchies in there. It's the idea is like get everybody who wants to do science in there and enable them to do science. So what we with VitaDAO is doing, we're like a DAO, a decentralized autonomous organization, and the way this is a kind of like a new structure of organization where you could think it's a community that is united under one mission. In our case, to accelerate longevity research, and we use crypto tokens to govern how decisions are made. So you have like a lot of transparency, a lot of voting, versus like the reverse way of like traditional corporations where it's like very top down. DAOs are like more bottom up, and that way we hope that we can like in a way use the collective wisdom of the crowd and of the people to get the best decisions. And we've been using that to fund, among other things, scientific research, because we think that scientific applications or like grant applications should be like rather short, 2 to 5 pages. They should be low, like a month, and they also should get direct feedback like from the people. So when an application comes in, we usually talk with the researchers and say, hey, why would you do experiment A? If we give you $20,000 more, maybe you could do experiment B. And this model has like, we started AthenaDAO, who's going to talk after me, they using the same HairDAO, CryoDAO, SciDAO, like they all tackle different verticals of industry, like female reproductive health, hair growth, cryopreservation or psychedelic research, and try to fund research that way. And there are different modalities like IP NFTs, where like the intellectual property is like in a way written to the blockchain and can be fractionalized. Quadratic donations, where like people funding are being matched and like augmented by wealthy philanthropes. Also, where people start playing around with retroactive funding, where you get a lot of money once something has been done, not prior. And then obviously like those fast grants, like people know here, impetus grants, repo grants, and COVID fast grants, which seem to be fairly successful. In what we've seen so far, that a lot of the research that is actually being funded there, that was deemed to be high risk, actually makes it like into high impact journals, and scientists are thrilled and have fun with it, which I think is like a very important thing. So the idea is, can we get 80% of time, or scientists should be doing 80% of the time actually doing science and only spend 20% of applying for funding instead of like 50%. With that in mind, it's like at the peak of like the 2021 crypto bull market, we had like $3 trillion in crypto. This might grow in the next decade, like to $5 or $10 trillion. And the question is, can we really funnel a lot of this crypto money, of this crypto wealth, into science? And if we would be thinking, if we only get like whatever 1% of 5 to 10 trillion, that's like 50 to 100 billion per year. At that stage, where like crypto would be competitive to like different nation states and would have like a certainly big firepower of R&D funding coming from the ecosystem, and it's guided by voting, it's guided by democracy, and probably allows like for more moonshots. So what are we doing with like VitaDAO? Is like, so far we funded like 19 projects. 3 of them are being spun out currently. We have like roughly a community of 9,000 members. 2,500 of them have tokens and actively vote. And yeah, we currently still have like liquid treasury, and looking like to fund more cool research. Here like some of like our snapshots, like we invest in companies, but also like fund those last 1 or 2 experiments at academia that are needed to make it ready for venture. I mean, Turn Biotechnologies and Rubido are like 2 fairly well-known ones. Matrix Bio is like a cooperation with like Vera Gorbunova, and the Korolchuk lab. We're also currently spinning out or looking into spinning out companies, and they just had like an IP NFT fractionalization. So around his project, there's like an entire sub-community now of people who are excited about it, and provided funds to it, and the auction was actually 1,300% oversubscribed. So that's also like a sign that the crypto community is really interested in longevity research, and what we're trying to do is also get the longevity community interested in crypto, so that it's like a fair exchange of like ideas and worlds, and not like just one sucking money out of the other. So how does biotech DAOs like VitaDAO work? Is like, well, to a big extent, we just like fund this very early stage research, like those last 1, 2 experiments. Then we help to incubate that with our team, getting it ready like for venture capital to come in and spin it eventually out. And hopefully in the future, I think that's like still a few years out for us. The sustaining part is like all the proceeds and all the money that is being made through those companies, be it like through like selling out IP or like exiting some of those companies. All this money goes back into the DAO so that we can like increase our treasury, increase our war chest, and find more cool research in the future. With VitaDAO, funding is our main thing, but because it's a DAO, you have a lot of people coming in with different ideas. They want to do different things, and the idea is in general, okay, as long as it's good for longevity, it's valuable. So we started like things like the Longevity Prize together with like the Foresight Institute that like gives a prize like for like certain hypotheses that should be tested out. We have like the Longevist, which is like mainly run by Riz and Tim, who's here, which is like an overlay journal where we curate and vote what are like the best preprints of each quarter. You're welcome to ask Maria or Tim more about that if you want to get involved. And also like we run like symposia, and like now that the real world is back, also like a lot of events globally to try to bring crypto, longevity, and DeSci together. Some people might have heard about that. We're also getting involved in like rethinking, could we start new jurisdictions, new countries, new cities that have like as a main idea longevity in their blood. And the idea as well, the way I think about it is, could we engineer blue zones? It's like through lifestyle interventions that people who live there are like really engaged in living a healthy life, but engineering in a way that can we create novel biotechnologically relevant therapeutics that are being tested out there, being faster tested, and make it quicker to market, and people in those jurisdictions benefit, but ultimately all people in the world will benefit from that. And we tested it out in Montenegro, where we de facto just rented like a small beach town. And it was like spearheaded by Vitalik from the Ethereum community, and thought what it would be to live together with a lot of like-minded people that love technology, that love longevity, that want to live a long, healthy life, also with a good community. And there will be like a fork of that next year in January, February in Honduras on a small island on Roatan. Where it's a pure longevity focus, where we have 150 to 200 people living there together for 2 months, trying to figure out and reimagine longevity. So where's this DeSci path and DAO path taking us? I mean, like I mentioned, it started in 2021. Now in 2023, 2025, you just see a growth. Much more DAOs are being formed. I think in the next few years, we really see if our model works of this collective intelligence funding and creating biotechs. So we need the validation. But I think hopefully by end of the decade, you will see that like some of those DeSci DAOs, like VitaDAOs, have like a treasury of like $100 million plus and can really fund on a global scale larger research, but also like potentially clinical trials that are currently not getting funded, and so on. And that I think all with the power of community. And yeah, if you guys are excited about like or want to get involved, you can scan the QR code. It gets you to everything that's relevant to VitaDAO. You can contact me. I think we're like 6 or 7 people from VitaDAO here, not in this room right now, but I think most of them, but in the conference. You can chat to us over the next few days, come to our booth, And yeah, we would like to hear about your projects. If you have any projects in mind that whatever you think with 250,000 could make move a needle, yeah, come and talk to us. And with that, thank you. And I'm happy to take questions.
Is it the panel? No. Oh, sorry.
You have a question. No. Okay, so I'm curious, have you guys ever participated on a safe note?
You mean if people gave us money on a safe?
You guys directly investing at a pre-seed or seed state in a startup?
I'm giving that to Tim because he knows the financing part of that.
We have a foundation who does that, because VitaDAO itself is not a legal entity in any jurisdiction. So we have a foundation, which is a Canadian foundation, which handles those. And there's, yeah.
Can you talk a little more about how that works? Biggest safe, et cetera?
So that foundation just invests just like any other organization. And there's a more complicated arrangement between that foundation and VitaDAO than we can go into here. But nonetheless, the general plan is that the money would, if there are to be returns from it, to basically go back into VitaDAO's treasury.
Okay.